James and Kellee Show.
Great, let's start the show.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Kelly. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody coming on.
Yes.
How have you been? How was your New Year's?
Well, it was quiet because two of our members ended up with COVID, so it was quiet. How was yours?
It was quiet. I actually went swimming. Don't ask.
In your pool, or did you go somewhere?
I warmed up my pool, and I had a friend visit me, an old friend of 40 years of the relationship, a close friend of mine, and yeah, we hung out and watched movies and went shopping, and redesigned the house. We decorated the house.
How fun is that?
And made lots of food and brought the Pearl around, and it was fun. It was a relaxing, still kind of time, which was great. I like
How does Pearl get along with new people when they enter?
She's just all love. She does her hula dance with her rear end, and my friend Chip has her sister, and he's my friend who brought Pearl down here originally and Minnie down here for me several months ago when they were puppies. So he got to see what Pearl looks like now, and we got to see Minnie too. We got to see Minnie, so we got to see them again. And he has a sister, so it's so funny, and they're very much alike. So
he's a Vastu practitioner. And he's an award-winning author. He's a Vedic scholar. So, you know, as soon as you say Vedic, I'm all in. And he's a teacher. And he has had a wildly interesting life. Let's introduce our guest, Michael Masters, please. Hi,
Michael. Welcome.
Vastu means building. It's a Sanskrit word for building, and Shastra means science. It's the science of building. And you can say it's, you know, just to give people a frame of reference, it's Indian feng shui. It's where feng shui came from.
I have a couple of guide stories. I might have told this over the years, but I still find it fascinating. One goes back in the 80s, and a guy I was dating at the time, but we broke up. But he had AIDS when AIDS was first around. He got AIDS, and he didn't believe in life after death. He was a true Taurus boy. He just didn't believe in it. And I did readings for him, and I went for a medium, my teacher, and I said, "No, Michael, there's more to it than this. There is." He goes, "Oh," and he was very pragmatic. So anyway, he passed over, and I lived in Hollywood. He lived in Culver City, and it was a Sunday morning. And I remember that was the day of his memorial at his house in Culver City. And I'll never forget it. It was at that twilight state. We're just about to wake up. And a woman comes to me, and it was a guy, and right away it was a guy. And she's a flowing dress. It was this African lady, Africanese. And she said, and this right to me, it's all happening. You need to tell him, he needs to hear it from someone he believes, he knows. And I said, oh. And she left, and Michael was there, and he said, "Am I dead?" And I said, "Yes, you are." He goes, "Wow," because I said, "Well, where do you find yourself?" And he said, "I'm in a closet." I said, "Well, no, you've passed over, Michael, and I'll be at memorial service." So that afternoon, I went to the memorial service, and his brother had it at the house. And I said to his brother, "Where did you put his remains, his ashes?" And he said, "I didn't know what to do with them, so I put them in the shelf in the closet."
Oh, he was in the closet.
Wild story.
Oh,
wild. Right?
But the interesting thing about it is, since I was a kid, I knew I was powerful, but I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
But I knew there was something much bigger for me, but I had no idea what that meant. And so by the time I hit college, I decided that wasn't a good thing. And I'm a fairly smart person. So when I graduated from college, I did well in college. And when I graduated from college, my career in business and marketing took off really fast. It's kind of where, okay, well, people will accept me here. They accept me for my intelligence, and they accept me for my drive and ambition. So I'm just, you know, I'm definitely not going to talk about being emotional or too sensitive. I mean, it was still very hurtful to me to think that I didn't belong.
You know, Debbie, if Kelly and I had a child, you would be it.
Yeah, that would be absolutely.
That's exactly the same thing in business.
Exactly.
And today I was thinking, I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk about my course. I'm going to talk about meditation, the benefits, and so forth. And all of a sudden I had this vision. It was so interesting. And it was almost like raindrops on a glass. You know, when raindrops on a glass, it's kind of foggy, kind of smoky. And meditation clears away those droplets and makes it clear.
It does, James.
Like
it does.
Like 2010 vision, it becomes very clear. The fog is lifted, and you see things much clearer. And that hit me today. I love that analogy.
That's a wonderful analogy.
It really works well. You take away the fog. You see things for who you are authentically, and what you have to do to let go of the obstacles, and how to get from the head to the heart. That's really what it is. Get the head to the heart.
I mean, really, that stillness is everything.
It's in the quiet. In my development, I've learned from many teachers, masters, and I remember certain sayings. The quiet is very loud, and I remember like highlights of sitting in the stillness of your being, and you learn to just ground and center yourself. And it's not hard to do. If you can breathe, you can do it. It's taking your breath, it's using your breath and running the breath and being part of that breath. And it's not limited to the physical body, going to the earth world and the spirit world, the spiritual dimensions, the world above us, the fields above us, if you will, and around us. And you see yourself as this beautiful diamond who's here to learn and process. And it's getting out of that judgment of the head and getting to the heart where the seat of the soul is. So it's seeing things from a soul perspective. That's the whole course, is the soul perspective meditation. I don't know if she remembers, but I do. And it was Omega Institute in upstate New York, where I worked as an institute for studies, for all different types of studying, from healing to cooking to yoga to all different types of things. And I met Danielle McKinnon, and she's an animal communicator. And when I met Danielle, she had a pixie-like haircut, which has changed, but she's always been so incredible. Please welcome my good friend here, Danielle McKinnon. Hey, Danielle.
Hi. I love the hair.
I wasn't sure. And when you were a young girl, this is going to be a common one. Did you feel like you were weird, that you really, no one would understand you, or this was a weird type of thing? Or
James, I still feel like that. Yeah, I was definitely the strange one. I definitely was told you need to kind of try to be like everybody else, tone it down. You're going to cry when you go to the pet store, then you can't go to the pet store anymore. It really was, my family was really just trying to get me to like tamp it all down.
And how were you, Danielle, is such a good one, because how were you able to handle the sensitivity with animals, like walking to a pet store, feeling those animals? How were you able to work with that and deal with that? Was it overwhelming?
It still can be overwhelming. So as a little girl, I had hamsters and guinea pigs and rabbits, and I had them all. I had all the animals. And if I had all the animals, then I could control how I felt, what was going on, and I could control that I knew that they were okay because they were in my care.
So what happened to me is, when I was 3 years old, I was bit by a mosquito. And when I got bit by this mosquito, I ended up with encephalitis. So encephalitis is inflammation of the brain. So a lot of people are asking, how does somebody become a medium? Like, if you have a near-death experience, will that propel you towards this? Well, I'll tell you, it certainly could. But in the inflammation of the brain, I was very, very sick, and I was 3 years old, and I was very sick. And I went into a coma, actually, in the hospital. And what happened is, in the coma, and I know I'm 3 years old, and let me just say, my bachelor's is in child development. So I understand what I'm about to say may sound a little far-fetched, but I went through this dark channel, like dark tunnel, basically, is the only way I can describe it. And I got through to this like membrane. This membrane thing, like a sticky glue kind of a thing that I was trying to get out of. And I was met with what I will call two of my great aunts that I did not recognize them. All I knew is that they were my great aunts. And then later I saw pictures of them. But at the time I did not know. And they said, you have to go back because your mother's destiny will change. Her course of destiny. Now, granted, I know I'm 3 years old as I'm saying this, but this is what they said. Because as a soul, my soul was not 3 years old. And I will tell you what happened when I was forced back into my body, James. I remember just being so depressed. And do you know, I think I was depressed for years after that, because I had to come back and I saw the beauty and the love, and there was no pain, no suffering. I just wanted to be there on that side. But I also knew I couldn't let my mom down. I knew that. She's going to tell us tonight about her story, but her podcast is called Grief and Rebirth. And she took a really big trauma along with a big message she received from the other side. And she turned it into the most joyful positivity that there is. So I'd love to introduce her. And this is Irene. Would you please come out? Irene Weinberg.
You're right.
There she is. Hi, Irene. Yay, welcome.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure, guys.
Can you tell us about your story?
Sure. I'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
I was a complete non-believer in anything having to do with spirituality. My husband and we were married. I'm going to tell you about my husband. We were married. We were second marriage. We were married about 18 years. We thought it was hooey. Yeah. So one day I'm washing dishes at my kitchen sink, and Saul was watching a chess game on TV in our family room. And I'm doing my thing, washing dishes, and all of a sudden a really strong thought came into my head, and it was not my thought. And it suddenly said to me, Saul has to go. Many lessons will be learned from his death. And
Which must have been a shock for you to hear.
I stopped at my kitchen sink and I thought, what the heck am I? And that wasn't the word I used, heck. I said, what the heck? What am I thinking over here? We get in the car and we're driving for an hour and a half on the New York State Thruway. And I suddenly feel the car go into a huge swerve. And I looked over and Saul was sound asleep at the wheel. We were going 72 miles an hour in the left-hand lane on the New York State Thruway.
Wow.
And I said, Saul, and he woke up and he saw what was happening. And he went to pull the car out of the swerve. And instead of pulling the car right, the car started to rise up in the air. It felt like I was in a gigantic roller coaster for the first of 4 flips.
Oh, yes.
I wasn't conscious in my life. You know, I was loving, I had been taught to be nice to people and all that. And I was a good person. But all of a sudden, I felt I was being given a directive from heaven. And I took it very seriously. So much so that instead of screaming for myself when my husband was gone, when they put me in the helicopter, I said to the EMTs, what's your name? Bless you. I know it's the weekend before Christmas. Thank you for coming out and helping me. They take me on a gurney to an emergency trauma center. The assistant to the surgeon who put 19 stitches in an artery in the bottom of my right foot. And she said 2 blood transfusions. And his assistant said to me, Irene, I called to tell you that you changed lives in the emergency room that night. We had never seen anyone. All you did was care about everyone who came near you. You weren't screaming for yourself. You were lauding the fact that you had love in your life and you appreciate him. And I said, Trish, I had a spiritual awakening that has changed my life.
The James and Kellee Show.
Great. Let's start the show.